Husband refused to cut ties with toxic friends who invaded our lives and sanity, but their antics eventually pushed our marriage to the breaking point. His commitment to his ventures and enterprises eventually led to their downfall. My spouse is very hesitant to remove anyone from his life, no matter how harmful they might prove to be. Therefore, I hope to use this situation to either persuade him or understand my own misjudgment. This is a lengthy account, as I aim to provide a thoroughly clear perspective. In short, our closest friends have essentially taken advantage of us, as demonstrated by the examples below. Should we simply cease all contact at this point? For some context, my husband and I have known these individuals for approximately 7 to 8 years. When our friendship first began, we spent a lot of time together. None of us had children, so it was naturally simple to do so. Then, when we exchanged vows, they served as our best man and maid of honor. They appeared extremely encouraging, yet they mostly spent the entire time lamenting how terrible their own wedding had been. Despite that, they dedicated an immense amount of effort to our wedding. They literally crafted centerpieces and decorations from items they acquired for free. Things became a little odd, though, and some of my bridesmaids approached me, expressing their disapproval of the maid of honor's demeanor in particular. However, it wasn't anything serious, so we dismissed it. The moment the wedding concluded, everything shifted. She became pregnant, and they began to behave quite strangely toward us. I had previously experienced 5 miscarriages by this point. My husband and I had been together for 5 years before even getting engaged, and our engagement lasted 2.5 years. We met when I was 21, so we felt no urgency to rush into marriage, and the pregnancies were unplanned. The miscarriages occurred very early, and while we were understandably sorrowful, we didn't necessarily dwell on them. When they announced the pregnancy, they immediately expressed uncertainty about telling us due to our past experiences, and they made a significant fuss about how miserable we must be because of the miscarriages, which struck me as very peculiar. I can still be overjoyed for someone else, even if I haven't personally experienced that joy. But again, I dismissed it, trying to interpret it as them attempting to be considerate. So, we began doing everything within our power to simplify their lives. We wished to support them in a manner similar to how they supported us for the wedding. They were our closest companions, and we were genuinely thrilled for them. We helped them renovate their residence, and I'm referring to substantial transformations, not minor tasks. For instance, we constructed large fixtures, assisted with updating the primary shower, painted and set up the nursery, and redid the flooring across 80% of the house. Both husbands are quite skilled and employed in mechanical and construction fields. We arranged 2 distinct baby celebrations for them, one for the women and one for the men, as that was their preference. We acquired all the necessities and easily spent over $1,000 on the gatherings alone. We also purchased adorable gifts that said things like, "I'm going to be a mom," or "I'm going to be a dad" during her pregnancy. Subsequently, we bought numerous items from their registry and continued to procure things they required when she was on maternity leave, and they were facing financial constraints. We lent them funds to help cover overdue bills. They reimbursed us approximately 80% of the time, and we never made a significant issue of it when they simply forgot. We offered to care for their child, but she never accepted. I consistently reminded her that I could visit, assist with cleaning, fold laundry, or do anything else she needed to alleviate her stress. At this juncture, it was evident she was experiencing significant postpartum depression, and I brought it to her husband's attention. He largely dismissed it, stating that it was my responsibility to resolve. He suggested I simply arrive at their house unannounced and compel her to sit down, but she is not the type of person who is comfortable with such an approach. This was a primary reason I continually reminded her of my availability to help. I wished to respect that personal boundary. However, her husband persisted in pushing the matter. So, one day, I went to their home and did precisely as he requested. That's when things between us grew even stranger. He initially claimed he wasn't home, yet upon our arrival, he was present, and it was clear they were having an argument and simply did not want us there. We remained for perhaps 10 minutes, unsure of how to proceed. When it became obvious the atmosphere wouldn't improve, we departed and never repeated that action. He attempted to get me to do it a few more times, and I explicitly declined, telling him it was improper. At this point, They began to distance themselves from us increasingly, and I didn't truly comprehend why. But then they declared they were relocating across the country. They started claiming we were poor friends because we didn't want to spend time with them, even though they were frequently visiting a park near our residence and never informing us so we could join them. We consistently made arrangements with them and prepared dinner whenever they actually showed up, but they never invited us anywhere and often didn't even respond when we tried to make plans. They only socialized with people who had children and simply wanted nothing to do with us. Consequently, we began to withdraw from them. Now, 2 years have passed, and they still haven't moved cross-country. They repeatedly assert their intention to do so, listing their house for sale and then removing it after a few months. Each time they list their house, they begin sending us messages stating how we are bad friends and only desire to spend time with them when they are moving. In December, I discovered I was expecting, which of course filled us with immense joy. We had actually spent time with them for the first time in a year, the week before I learned of my pregnancy, and it seemed as though things were returning to normal. So I was very excited and messaged them a picture of the ultrasound. I assumed that knowing all the difficulties we experienced to conceive, they would be thrilled for us. I was mistaken. I was informed that I needed to quit my job because I wouldn't be a good mother and wouldn't be able to handle the demands if I continued working. There is no way my husband and I can afford our home without both of our incomes to maintain a reasonably comfortable life. We found a childcare facility that we absolutely adore, and we both agree it will aid in our child's social development and allow us to remain fully concentrated while at work, knowing our baby is in capable hands. I also work from home, so if any situation arose, we could easily keep the child at home if necessary. Therefore, I conveyed to them that I would not be following that advice. I told her we had a very robust support network. We live close to both sets of grandparents, all of our siblings, and one of my aunts who is very involved. We have so many individuals in our immediate family who are so eager and prepared to assist. And my husband is incredibly helpful. Since I became pregnant, he's handling 90% of the household duties, and anything I do is solely because I wish to do it. He would gladly take it off my plate, but I cannot remain still to save my life. After explaining this, it appeared, she immediately began to penalize us. They relisted their house for sale, reiterating that they wouldn't be able to assist with anything or attend any of our baby-related events. We had a gender reveal and are planning a baby shower. I was disappointed, and I did inform her that it was a little disheartening, especially since we played such a significant role in their pregnancy. It felt strange not to have them even attend as guests. She instantly scolded me, proclaiming she had no assistance, and no one had ever wanted to do anything for her since she became pregnant, and she simply needed to get away. This truly distressed me, because we literally did everything conceivable for them. The sole thing we never did was care for their child, as they would not permit it. It was simply astonishing that after all we had done, as already detailed above, it was still perceived as them receiving no help whatsoever. So, I opted to simply remove them from the list, as it seemed they would be absent regardless. The husband had been informing my husband that they were mere days away from receiving multiple offers, and this was 2 months prior to our gender reveal. Since she had already stated she wouldn't come, we simply took them off the guest list. However, they were still present 2 weeks before the gender reveal, and upon seeing that others received invitations, they became upset that they hadn't. I then clarified that I didn't want them to feel pressured to attend, and it didn't appear they were very interested in maintaining a relationship with us. Therefore, we chose not to complicate matters further. Nevertheless, I also sent her the electronic invitation and told her she was more than welcome to come. She continued to simply chastise me and behave passively aggressively about the situation, acting as if we had committed some terrible offense against them. So, at this point, I assumed they would not attend. Then, her husband began messaging mine, telling him he was a terrible friend and how their friendship had always been one-sided, and we never did anything for them. He proceeded to assert that we only contacted them when we desired something and refused to ever assist them. And of course, they would attend, and we were awful people for ever assuming they wouldn't. He then claimed he never told my husband they had offers on their house, to which my husband literally sent him screenshots of the messages, and he just kept insisting my husband had misunderstood. At this point, I am furious, because why is this becoming such a stressful ordeal? Either participate or don't. Either support us or don't. But you cannot behave poorly and then expect us to treat you like royalty. They arrived at the gender reveal, and every single person present approached us and inquired if they were all right due to their impolite conduct. They rolled their eyes whenever someone spoke to them. They refused to manage their child, who repeatedly obstructed people attempting to set things up. And it was evident they were also arguing with each other because they constantly made sharp remarks. When they prepared to depart, the wife said nothing to me and simply stood there awkwardly while her husband was bidding us farewell. He appeared more amicable, but she literally kept walking toward the exit, trying to get him to leave. Now, a month has passed, and we haven't heard a single thing from them. We simply went ahead and extended an invitation to the baby shower to avoid further conflict. And today, I received a message stating they guess they'll attend, but it's inconvenient timing. I reminded them that they are not obligated to attend, but they do need to RSVP and provide sufficient notice so our host, who is arranging food and favors, etc., can ensure they are on the list. I am seriously considering initiating no contact at this point and simply removing them from our lives. However, I just feel like there's something I'm overlooking. A few individuals who have reviewed the text messages have told me that it seems like she is envious, but I don't comprehend why. I don't know if perhaps I did something irrational that makes me the problem here. Or maybe I'm simply being foolish and clinging to something that has clearly concluded. It seems like every time I turn around, they are attempting to find a way to make my pregnancy stressful and provoke arguments with us. Also, as a side note, I have supported every business she had, 2 to 3 at this point, by purchasing at least $100 worth of her items and consistently informing people about her endeavors. However, I started a craft business, and she has never bought anything or supported mine. She acknowledges its existence, but even when her friends ask for items I create, she never recommends me. They usually end up discovering me on their own, and then remarking, "She never told me you did this. I would have absolutely bought this from you." Part of me feels, as I write all of this, that it appears painfully obvious, but perhaps I'm also blind to another perspective. So, would I be in the wrong at this point if I simply completely ceased all contact with them? Okay, Reddit, it's time for an update. And holy hell, I did not anticipate having so much more to convey now. Prepare yourselves, because the past 6 weeks have thoroughly convinced me that if we don't sever ties with these individuals, my well-being and my marriage might not endure raising a child. So, after my previous post, I decided to take a significant step back and truly observe how I was feeling, searching for anything I might be missing. I even began recording every interaction in a journal. That experiment was unsettling. I realized that every time I engaged with them, no matter how brief or superficial, I felt utterly drained afterward. But it wasn't just me. I noticed my husband, who is typically a consistently cheerful and affectionate person, began leaving his phone in unusual places or forgetting to reply to messages, something he has never done before. He kept saying, "I just don't know what to say to him anymore." Which, coming from the man who would probably offer comfort to a houseplant if it looked sad, that's saying something. But clearly, ending all contact is a significant decision. And despite all of Reddit's urgent advice, my husband found it incredibly difficult to let go. We decided to gently introduce boundaries, and surprisingly, things escalated immediately. First, they did show up at the baby shower, but they were almost 2 hours late. And it's completely understandable to be late if your child throws a tantrum or a diaper incident occurs before you even leave the house. That's just life. But no, they were delayed, because they chose to spend the time looking at houses in our vicinity. Bear in mind, the housing market here is extremely competitive, and for months, they had made it clear they were committed to relocating several states away. They arrived acting like celebrities who had graced us with their presence and made a few impolite remarks about the decorations, which, by the way, our mutual friend created and put her heart into. The maid of honor, let's call her Jess, immediately began a loud monologue about how my showers were always more organized than this and ensured every guest overheard her. At one point, I found her talking loudly to my cousin about how, with a career like that, how would the original poster ever have time for a baby anyway? Then, get this, she literally pulled one of my friends aside and tried to sell her on her new MLM business. I wish I were exaggerating. But the true turning point, The incident that finally made me fully aware of the glaring warning signs occurred later that afternoon. One of the activities at the shower was diaper Jenga. My friend assembled it, wrote amusing messages on the diapers, and handled the entire setup. Jess selected one at random, then declared to the group, "Well, you certainly didn't need these for long, and some of us never had anyone to help, not even for one night." Then she simply stared at me while everyone chuckled nervously. I was utterly speechless, truly without words. I informed my husband later, and even he, the master of avoiding conflict, simply fell silent and somewhat whispered, "That was just unkind." So, after the celebration, I decided to initiate what I can only describe as Operation Boundaries. I began with minor adjustments. I stopped liking or commenting on her endless business updates. I didn't respond to her personal stories. I made no effort to propose any get-togethers. They noticed immediately, of course. She started messaging me every few days, asking, "Hey, are you okay? Haven't heard from you." Her husband messaged mine, "Bro, is everything good? You seem distant, not sure you value this friendship." When we did reply, we kept our responses brief and courteous. This triggered their aggressive attempts to push past our boundaries. Suddenly, Jess was messaging me about meeting for coffee, sans children, claiming she really needed some adult time. When I expressed discomfort about sitting inside a coffee shop for hours at 7 months pregnant, she sent me a list of her favorite doctors who supposedly assert it's perfectly fine to do anything as long as you're not a weakling about it. Then her husband texted mine a photo of a boat and asked, "Can you help me fix this engine before we leave? You're the only one I trust." My husband politely declined, stating his weekends were occupied with baby preparations. This sparked the next outburst. "I guess we know who truly has your priorities." Then came the most bizarre incident yet. They telephoned us at 10 in the evening. I was utterly drained and sound asleep because they had locked themselves out of their residence. And apparently, there wasn't a single locksmith or neighbor in the entire world who could possibly assist them except for us. We reside 30 minutes away, and both their own parents are only 10 minutes away. My husband attempted to gently explain that we couldn't help, but Jess literally texted me, "So I guess now we're not even worth that much to you?" I awoke the following morning to a series of all-caps messages about how genuine companions make sacrifices. The energy this required made me want to discard my phone. But here's the crucial point. We did not yield. Not once. We didn't apologize, didn't compromise, didn't rush. We simply allowed the boundary to stand firm. And then, complete silence for 3 full weeks. It was as if our home had been purified by the world's most potent cleansing ritual. My pregnancy. Heartburn even subsided, which my obstetrician insists is a mere coincidence, but I remain unconvinced. Then, last week, 3 events transpired in rapid succession that compelled the ultimate confrontation. Firstly, my husband encountered Jess's husband at a local hardware store. The husband was extremely aloof, avoiding eye contact, then stated, loudly as he walked away, "Hope you enjoyed your little shower. Must be nice to actually have people who care." My husband returned home trembling and declared, "I just can't endure this any longer." Secondly, we discovered from a mutual acquaintance that Jess has been informing everyone willing to listen that we abandoned her during her lowest point and exploited her for presence in gatherings, with no intention of including her in our lives now that we have a child. She literally told people I copied her nursery concepts and couldn't even be original in my own celebration themes. It's childish behavior, but it stung. Thirdly, and most ludicrously, Jess had the sheer boldness to text me out of the blue inquiring if she could have my obstetrician's direct contact information because I'm just not sure you're getting the right advice and want to ask her some questions for you. I nearly spluttered my meal out laughing. When I politely, or rather curtly, declined, she followed up with, "If you take advice from a real friend, maybe your journey wouldn't have taken so long." I'm not overstating this. My hands trembled reading that message. So that was it. I sat down, composed a message, respectful and not overly emotional, and conveyed to her, "It is clear our companionship is no longer beneficial for either of us, and I need to withdraw. I wish you all the best." She replied with a lengthy written piece expressing how wounded she was, how I was discarding her like trash, and how it was no surprise I had difficulty building my family, claiming, You're not capable of commitment. My husband sent her husband a similar communication. We muted them everywhere, removed them from all our announcement lists, and temporarily blocked their numbers to prevent impulsive responses. Here's the remarkable part. It's been a week since all of this, and I feel 10 pounds lighter. I now grasp that it wasn't solely the incessant drama, but the persistent self-doubt, the sensation that I was the one causing issues or letting someone down. Since then, my family has completely embraced a supportive community role. I have group chats filled with baby-related humorous images, actual friends dropping by to deliver prepared meals, and my mother calling me to rehearse grandparent babysitting drills. My husband has been able to laugh again at silly television shows. It feels normal. And because fate never leaves well enough alone, today Jess's newest enterprise followed me on Instagram. Its description: helping mothers who've been deserted build genuine connections. Her initial product: a wooden sign that reads, "Real friends stand by you, not above you." I captured a screenshot, not to send to anyone. I don't need to, but simply to remind myself that certain endings are essential and that sometimes the universe provides a literal and metaphorical sign. Time for another development. And somehow, against all expectations, things have become even more chaotic. I genuinely believed that after the final farewell messages and blocking them everywhere, we had finally truly reached a point of cessation. Drama eliminated, path to serenity cleared. How naively optimistic of me, because if this prolonged ordeal has taught me anything, it's that problematic individuals are akin to glitter. Just when you think you've removed the last particle, you discover an entire cluster beneath your sofa. It commenced subtly at first. The initial couple of weeks were blissfully, almost suspiciously, calm. I could practically sense the tension dissipating from our residence. My husband was humming while assembling the crib. I could actually browse social media again. And we were finally spending undisturbed evenings envisioning our new baby. Not a sound from Jess or her partner. No cryptic messages. No passive-aggressive images. No mysterious missed calls. It honestly felt a little too good to be true. Then, approximately 4 weeks after we ceased communication, my husband received an email on his work account. Yes, his work email, which neither of us had ever shared with them. The subject line read, "Important closure." Of course, he didn't open it immediately, but curiosity eventually prevailed. It was from Jess's husband, rambling for 7 dense paragraphs about devotion and how true men don't shy away from difficult conversations, interspersed with numerous statements about choosing his wife over his real family, and culminating in one final request, I am not joking, to help him transport his troublesome boat to storage. That was the subject's important closure. We both simply sat there, roaring with laughter. My husband blocked the sender. This seemingly triggered the subsequent disturbance. Suddenly, mutual acquaintances began contacting us on behalf of Jess and her husband, some delicately inquiring if there had been a misunderstanding. It turns out the troublesome pair had embarked on a strangely dedicated public relations campaign. They started appearing at gatherings they had previously neglected, one friend's barbecue, another's child's birthday celebration, spinning a narrative about us abandoning them for social media validation and having no regard for years of friendship. Jess even posted a vague Instagram story about learning who one's genuine connections are. Sometimes blood, sometimes lifelong closest friends who turn out to be deceptive, complete with a photo of a bracelet she had made for me back in 2018. Initially, we disregarded it and simply focused on preparing for the baby and nesting. My health and our child's well-being had to be our priority. But then one day, my husband burst inside, holding a letter. In a handwritten envelope with Jess's unmistakable bubbly penmanship, she had mailed us a 4-page tribute to friendship, complete with a printed poem about betrayal. She included a Polaroid from our wedding, on which she had drawn devil horns on herself with a silver marker for reasons I still cannot comprehend. The concluding paragraph accused us of utilizing her as a fertility charm and appropriating her maternal radiance. Genuinely, it was so deranged I almost had to admire the imagination. My husband wished to incinerate it, but I set it aside as a cautionary tale for our future child. Child, this is why we have rules about who receives our address. I wish I could claim that was the end, but their campaign intensified. I discovered through a shared acquaintance in our local parents' network that Jess was utilizing one of my own older craft project tutorials, lifted entirely from my blog, down to the punctuation, as her latest signature product for her new multi-level marketing side venture. She posted images on her business account with a caption about originality and supporting women who genuinely desire to exert effort. And then, in the comments, she and her companions engaged with a couple of kind individuals who tagged me, suggesting I deserved recognition. Jess retorted, "Some people only desire acknowledgement when it's convenient. That's not what genuine connection is about." It was strangely poetic. I posted nothing. I said nothing. But fate was not finished, because, dear reader, Jess appeared at my parents' house. I wish I were exaggerating. We were there for a tranquil Sunday lunch, my feet resting on the ottoman, discussing meal preparation plans. There was a knock at the door. My father answered, then peered into the living room with that familiar, something's amiss expression. Standing on the porch was Jess, holding what appeared to be a gift bag and a spiral notebook. I froze. My mother declared, "Let me handle this. I've been anticipating a neighborhood confrontation my entire life." She stepped outside and closed the door. What transpired next, I will never fully know. But my mother returned 10 minutes later, looking both deeply satisfied and ever so slightly sympathetic. She handed me the gift bag, which contained a onesie from Jess's initial baby shower that literally had her child's name on it, and stated, "You never have to worry about her appearing again." Later, my father informed us with a knowing look that your mother can professionally deflate the aspirations of an entire real estate open house. We agreed this was a tale to be reserved until the baby is old enough to grasp why grandmother has no patience for adult temper tantrums. After the Porchgate incident, we finally sent a discreet message to a handful of shared friends. "We've chosen some distance for our family. Please do not include us in any group communications or unnecessary side dramas, and we wish them well." Most friends responded with understanding. Some, it turns out, were already quietly disengaging from Jess and her husband for similar reasons. One friend shared that Jess had also cornered her at a playground a week earlier, seeking information about us, and when rebuffed, muttered about how some women can't handle another mother's power. I wish I could say she was jesting, but at this point, I don't believe that phrase is even in her vocabulary. Now, the most astonishing development, the one that made me laugh so heartily I almost went into labor prematurely. Jess utilized her parenting business's Instagram account to host a public competition for the best story of insincere companions. The winner would receive a handmade sign and my story. She altered the names but not the specifics, and it served as the example post. Several acquaintances recognized it instantly and messaged me, complete with, "Oh my goodness. Is this about you?" inquiries. My only reply was an image of LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow, symbolizing that one doesn't have to take my word for it. The sign, by the way, contained a spelling error. True frames are there through thick and thin. That's my life currently. A surreal, dreamlike state of former friends, reused baby clothes, typographical errors, and the profound tranquility that arrives when you genuinely remove someone from your life. Our genuine friends are rallying more than ever before. I completed the nursery, which, by the way, is entirely original, not inspired by any online mood boards. And my husband has become the king of dad jokes. On the windowsill, I placed the misspelled framed sign because, honestly, every time I see it, I recall why we cannot and will not ever return. Oh, get ready, because I genuinely thought we had entered the promised land of calm, low-stress adulthood. But no. It turns out problematic acquaintances possess more resilience than a cat and superior tracking abilities than a federal agency. Next update is here, and I might require a television series deal by the conclusion of this narrative. So, let's begin with the part where I imagined we were in the epilogue of our narrative. We blocked Jess and her husband on every platform. Phones, emails, social media, even professional networking sites. Why, I'm not entirely sure, but caution is prudent. We placed the notorious True Frames sign on a nursery shelf as a final piece of closure and an inside jest for our children someday. I felt lighter each week, truly content, preparing meals with my mother, and even attending a prenatal yoga class once Jess and her troublesome associate had faded away. Life was, dare I say it, ordinary. Then, 3 weeks ago, my phone began vibrating off the table at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. An unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, assuming it was unsolicited communication. No. It was a mutual acquaintance, breathless and frantic, exclaiming, "You need to check social media." Now, Jess is active in one of the local parenting communities, and, well, just take a look. What greeted me was a 10-paragraph lengthy rant about when communal support fails, starring, of course, a local couple for whom I meticulously crafted every wedding centerpiece and showered with affection. Yet who, even in my most challenging recent times, chose to abandon me in my moment of need, all while attempting to replicate my life as their own? No names were mentioned, but she indeed recounted everything from our home renovations to the baby shower's color scheme. Her post was accumulating expressions of sympathy and well wishes rapidly, and a few of her loyal associates were expressing shock in the comments. "How could anyone do this to you?" Others remarked, "Wow, this is so petty. Maybe it's time to move on." The interaction was messier than a toddler's inaugural birthday cake. Initially, I dismissed it and did nothing, but the post started gaining momentum. Suddenly, an old high school acquaintance messaged me, "Hey, random question. Did you borrow Jess's nursery theme or something? She's really upset, I guess." It became clear Jess was privately sharing her version of events and subtly hinting at our identities. What truly cemented it for me, though, was one evening when our doorbell rang, and it was my neighbor from 2 houses down. She was holding a handwritten envelope and said, "This was left at my house last night. I think it's for you." Inside, a letter penned in a different friend's handwriting, but undeniably Jess's dictation, all about how genuine maternal affection is not envious but celebrates. The apparent moral: we had failed some unspoken parental benchmark and should be ashamed for declining community outreach. I laughed so heartily I startled the cat and then placed it in the folder with the other peculiar Jess mementos. But here's where things truly spiraled out of control. Recall the boat? Yes, the infamous, "Can you assist me in storing the boat?" request from her husband. Well, the day before my scheduled C-section, I had to switch to a C-section after some late-term complications. All resolved now, a tow truck appeared in front of our residence at 7:45 a.m. The driver, perfectly amiable, inquired, "Here to collect the boat?" Yes. Jess's husband had arranged for his partially broken eyesore of a vessel to be delivered to my driveway until they sorted things out, listing my husband as the point of contact. He had completed an online form with my husband's name and our precise address. I wish you could have witnessed my expression. Standing in my robe, 8.5 months pregnant, gazing at a stranded pontoon in the street with a bewildered driver and a stack of passive-aggressive notes tucked under my arm. My husband, usually composed, became infuriated. He called the individual, explaining, "No, it's not staying here. No authorization. Haul it back or dump it in the river for all I care." The sympathetic driver provided us with copies of all the documentation. That was the final breaking point. This is where our narrative transitions from suburban oddity to full-blown investigative report territory. My husband contacted the storage facility listed on the paperwork, recounted the entire sorry history, and ended up conversing with a rather inquisitive yet helpful front desk employee. It turns out Jess and her spouse had provided our address as their forwarding address, not just for the boat, but for a few official matters. My husband asked, "What sort of matters?" The storage lady calmly replied, "Oh, there are a couple of certified letters here, and some new business license paperwork from the state." Yes, they had registered her newest parental business with our address as the legal business location. So now, deep into the 8th month of pregnancy, I'm receiving state tax documents, catalogs, and even an invitation for Jess to join some new entrepreneurial network at my house. This, after she told the entire world I was the insincere friend stealing her radiance. I began monitoring my security camera like a hawk, anticipating her to begin filming inspirational content about reconciliation on my lawn with her misspelled sign. We lodged a complaint with the Postal Service, verified with the State Business Registry, and dispatched a stern, legally drafted letter, thanks to my cousin and her law degree. Did I desire legal conflict? No. Did I need Mom Boss by Upscale? Name LLC receiving packages at my house indefinitely? Also no. The registry indicated they had flagged the business and forwarded the complaint. Jess, predictably, sent another message through a disposable email account. "Why are you sabotaging my ability to build a support system for mothers who've been abandoned by women like you?" I did not reply, but I did update my email filters. Throughout all of this, my support system stepped up completely. My mother, newly dedicated to eliminating negativity for the baby's well-being, became an anti-Jess enforcer, warning every cousin to block any new social media accounts related to her parenting business. My in-laws even inquired if I had security cameras everywhere. Suspicious Jess would attempt to personally deliver one of her motivational wooden signs before the baby's arrival. My husband, meanwhile, finally confessed. I now realize there's simply no saving individuals who wish to bring you down for amusement. His therapist, whom he finally consulted, told him, "Sometimes the healthiest family is the one you choose for yourself." Our small family, he said, was now his primary concern. I would love to state this is the conclusion, but Jess, much like a malevolent artificial intelligence, has inspired a small local community, all of whom appear to be reinterpreting personal limits as emotional distress. Last week, I discovered she is conducting a support group at the library for mothers who have been socially avoided. Yes, truly. The sign on the door featured a direct quotation from one of her recent posts. "When you're left out in the cold, construct your own damn sanctuary." I may not be legally permitted to use her true given name as a lullaby curse, but I do extend wishes of warmth and joy to her and her small group of aspiring entrepreneurs from a medically safe distance. Here is the joyful turn in this chaos. 3 days ago, my beautiful, soft, perfect daughter arrived. The first genuine friends and family to meet her, in shifts with hand sanitizer at the ready, were the individuals who consistently showed up and gently inquired how they could assist us, not what we could do for them. Real embraces, real prepared meals, real hearty laughter. Someone brought us an intricately hand-painted sign for the baby's room. It read, "Home is where the true people are." Jess's strange behavior may still circulate within the neighborhood, but at our house, it is finally, truly peaceful, save for the sweet cries of a healthy newborn and, occasionally, my husband's snorting laughter as he recounts the boat story. Perhaps genuine companions do not stand above or below, perhaps they simply stand by. No hashtags required.